The trial for 3 men charged in the killing of Ahmaud Arbery is now in the hands of the jury. The prosecution had the last say this morning before deliberations started. The defense made a last-minute move for a mistrial over interpretations of the citizen's arrest law. The judge denied that request. Yesterday, the defense spent hours trying to pick apart the case in their closing arguments. Today, the lead prosecutor responded.
You can't force someone to defend themselves against you, so you get to claim self-defense. This isn't the Wild West. You saw the video. What does it look like from the video? Is he in there hiding? Is he in there crouched down? Or is he just wandering around as usual inside? Remember, no one had ever told him to not be on that property. No badge, no uniform, no authority. Just some strange guys in a white pickup truck. Strangers. They know what they did. It's not like they don't know what they did. I'm asking you to find all 3 defendants guilty of all the charges in the indictment.
I want to bring in CBS News correspondent Omar Villafranca, who is coming to us from outside that courtroom. Hi, Omar. So how did the lead prosecutor respond to the defense's closing arguments?
Good afternoon, Tanya. She basically went point by point, refuting everything that they had said. As a matter of fact, she had almost like a PowerPoint presentation and was trying to avoid legal terms. She was really putting it into simple terms for the jury to understand, so there was no confusion whatsoever. And she had a graphic, and the example she used on this graphic was, if somebody goes in to rob a bank and only one person has their finger on the trigger and someone is shot and killed, then the law says and treats it as if everyone involved had their finger on the trigger. And that, she had graphics for this, making it very clear and plain for the jury for when they go back to deliberate. She's hoping that those murder charges will be an easy checkbox.
And did you see any signs of how the jury responded to the prosecution's closing arguments today?
What we were paying attention to was attentiveness, and from all indications, everyone was attentive. Now, certain times during the trial, prosecution and defense attorneys have brought up that some of the jurors have looked tired. As a matter of fact, they've tried to possibly get one of the jurors removed for possibly nodding off or sleeping, and some of them have actually walked towards the jury box to see if the person is awake or not. But from all indications at this point, they were zoned in on Linda Donikoski in her rebuttal statement at the end.
Oh, okay, Omar, let's dig in a little deeper to that the citizen's arrest argument, rather. The defense has tried multiple times to swat down the prosecution's explanation of citizen's arrest and sort of paint their own explanation of it. Why does so much of this case hinge on what is a legal citizen's arrest?
Well, because of the way it is defined. Now, just the rules as defined by the judge and the law are basically saying a citizen's arrest, when it happens, somebody has to witness a felony, and then they're trying to make that arrest quickly after that crime is committed. Now, what's being argued is chasing Ahmaud Arbery for more than 5 minutes for a suspected crime, because keep in mind, they thought he was a burglar. He didn't have anything on him. He hadn't stolen anything. Is 5 minutes a short enough immediate window? That's why there was some argument today. And in fact, during the rebuttal closing today, the defense objected to it, but the judge let it go on. And then when the judge finally read the jury instructions, the judge did define what a citizen's arrest was and the parameters for a citizen's arrest.
Right.
And let me add this real quick, Tanya. Let me add this, that there was objections to that a few days ago by the defense saying, well, if you go by that definition, it basically just guts our case and hands it to the prosecution. But the judge says that is the law, that is the way it's written, and that's part of the instructions that the jury has.
Right. And Omar, one of the defense lawyers is getting some heat over remarks she made on Monday about Mr. Arbery's physical appearance. Let's listen to those comments and the response from Mr. Arbery's mother.
Turning Ahmaud Arbery into a victim after the choices that he made does not reflect the reality of what brought Ahmaud Arbery to Satilla Shores in his khaki shorts with no socks to cover his long, dirty toenails.
She described Ahmaud as his long legs and his dirty, long toenails. that was just beyond rude. Regardless of what kind of toenails he had, what size legs he had, that was still my son.
So, Omar, did the judge or the prosecution raise any issues with what the defense said about Mr. Arbery's appearance?
They did not. There was no objections that were made during those statements at all from the prosecution, and the judge didn't step in at all. But I talked to Wanda Cooper-Jones last night after that was fresh on her mind. That was from yesterday's closing, and she told me that she expected the defense, in her words, to go low, but she didn't think they would go that low. And she said, you know, that may tell the jury enough about their case. So how it's going to be interpreted by the jury, we're not sure. But it was one of those things that when people heard it, they kind of shifted in their seats, or if they were looking down, they perked up. Whether it's going to be effective or not, that's up to a jury.
Right. And Omar, the three men accused of murdering Mr. Arbery will face hate crime charges in federal court in February, regardless of the outcome of this trial. So what more can you tell us about that?
That's at the time that this happened in February of 2020, there was no, Georgia was one of the few states that did not have state hate crime laws on the books, surprisingly. But there are federal hate crimes, so that is where that case is going there. It's interesting, though, because talking to attorneys and also family attorneys for the Arbery family, they are saying that it's almost as if the federal government, the federal prosecutors seem to be looking over the shoulder to see how this plays out in a state court, and then if any balls are dropped, they may be picked up by the federal prosecutors on the federal side. So there's not a lot of talk about that yet on the federal side. They still have to get through this side, but it's going to be interesting to see when that federal case happens, what they pull from this case, similar evidence and tactics, and see how they're used on the federal side.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, so Omar Villafranca in Brunswick, Georgia, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Tanya.